Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Contemporary Issues Sunday School class, where we talk about social issues, current issues from a Christian perspective. And we are glad to have part two today with Ron Puning about Harry Truman. We learned a lot about Harry last week, including that he desegregated the military in 1948, long before it was fashionable in the 60s for civil rights. So lots of good examples of Harry having good character and doing things with Christian values. And so follow up today with the bomb and other aspects. Looking forward to that. Okay. And our usual announcements are Zoomers welcome, and please mute yourself in the lower left corner of your screen when you're not speaking. So we keep the background noise down, and we are recording this for future playback. And any other announcements?
Easter, we don't have class.
Easter, we might have class. I just asked Carly in the office about it and said we could if we want to. That service times will be different. There'll be a 9:30 service, be over at 10:30, so we could have class if we'd like to. Do most people not want to?
Yeah.
You'll be somewhere else.
Yeah, I know.
Steve shaking his head. People have relatives in town.
Steve's the only one that'll find parking.
Always
get a front door spot.
No, that's a good point too. We don't need to have it every time we could. So we will, yes, we will not. Does anybody really vehemently want to do it? Okay, we will not. I'm glad we asked. Okay, good to know.
Oh, you're off the hook.
Off the hook,
No,
right?
he doesn't like being off the hook.
I like coming here doing this. Before we turn over to historical wars discussion, let's talk about Iran for just a couple of minutes. Get our thoughts.
Is that possible?
Yes, we can contain it to a couple of minutes. It's turned out to be more of a tiger by the tail than apparently Mr. Trump thought it would be. And he said, you probably saw it last couple of days, him saying that we're winding this down now. We're very close to achieving our goals of taking out their ballistic missiles and their Navy. And now that we're very close, we may be wrapping this up and stopping very shortly.
That's why we're sending in the Marines.
That's why we sent the Marines and lots of other things.
And how are we going to control all the drones?
Drones is another issue too. And what about regime change? Do we just give up on that? Do they have a plan behind the scenes to bring in somebody? How would they install the new person when the current regime is so embedded and underground and still has all of these missiles? And yes, Steve, did you raise your hand? Anything you'd like to? Yes, use the microphone over there. Thank you, sir.
God bless my dad always felt that there should be another cabinet position, which is somebody that sees history. That you can't do anything unless you consider what else.
Consider history. Oh.
And if you would have taken a look at the history of the area and stuff like that, that you would have known that you can't put that there or stir that hornet's nest, because it's something you could probably never stop.
Steve, your mic isn't on.
It is.
Yeah, just hold it real close, Christine, and loud.
We're talking about like the former Persian Empire, speaking of history, but my question is, do we want to set a precedent where we go around changing other countries' leaders? I mean, who are we to say that this leader is not appropriate? What if someone doesn't think our leader is appropriate? Is it okay for them to take our leader out? So I mean, that's a disturbing precedent.
New York Times had a good historical story on that about how often we have done that in the past, starting in the early in the century, and in the 50s we were in Iran changing that regime. And so this is nothing new. We've been here before. Absolutely. Yes, Larry, go ahead.
Really good article in the Denver Post today called "Putin is not America's friend."
Okay, we'll look for that one. Very good. Very good. Well, it'll certainly be interesting to see. Susie.
As I remember back in the 50s, 60s, there used to be, there was an agency, Air America. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Remember the name Air America?
Air America was the agency that went in and took out the people who were at the top.
Uh-huh.
And they finally dismantled it after, I mean, they go in and, kill the heads of the country and stuff, but that was Air America, you can look that up.
There was a movie on it too, Air America,
Was there?
although it didn't
Yeah,
specifically focus on that part of their,
yeah, that's
mission.
what they did.
And of course, the American CIA had secret missions going in and changing in Latin America, working with the revolutionaries, trying to change regimes. And so, yeah, go ahead, Larry.
When I was in Vietnam, 66, 67, Air America was very active.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, you know what they're saying now is that Trump is realizing the tremendous cost in every way of this, and it's the war spreading throughout the region. And he is open now to maybe stopping and saying, we've achieved our goals. And so we're going to leave it where it is now, and we're just going to come home.
Leave it.
Yeah. Not change the regime, but we've degraded their army so much and their defenses that we've achieved success, and now we're going to stop and come back.
But I thought in the Denver Post today, they said that he was threatening to blow up all of their, I mean, he goes from de-escalating to massively
Yeah.
escalating on in
1
social
minute,
media.
1
from
minute to
minute
the
minute.
next. Right. 1 minute to the next, flipping from one side to the other. Yep.
And they called Biden a flip-flopper.
A flip-flopper, that's a whole nother issue. We talk about all the flip-floppers in history. Yeah. Okay, any thoughts? Peter, any thoughts as a cultural anthropologist on the cultures now in the Middle East and what?
Just that it's challenging to change cultures.
Yes.
Yes, and should we, building on what our good friends have just said, I mean, should we
Yeah.
intervene and thus modify or change a culture or cultural standing? Of course, I'm not supportive of the cultural leadership in Iran, but
Yeah.
the everyday people there, some of whom I've heard about through friends who are Iranian Americans,
Mhm.
boy, culture change, leadership change, really tough,
Really hard and takes
really tough.
not as quick as Venezuela was.
Do we have a right to do that?
And do we have a right to do that? That's another good question.
Next one, Cuba.
Next one of Cuba is coming up, Steve says, yes. Next one's already queued up. Okay, with that, we didn't quite solve that one, but it's nice to talk about it. Nice to get our thoughts out.
yeah.
Okay, and of course, in talking about all this kind of thing, it's good to look at history and see what we have done in the past and who was successful and who was not. And with that, welcome to our presenter, Ron Puning, retired engineer and reader of all kinds of books and historical events. And so thank you, Ron.
Okay, thank you, everybody. If you didn't get to see last week's intro, Steve has put it out there on Zoom. And you should, but
Talk about it.
the one book that we used the most was McCullough's detailed Pulitzer Prize winning book on Truman. And Truman, of course, an avid reader and an avid writer, wrote 2 memoir books, and they are really well written. One thing I mentioned last week that I admire about Truman, he was an avid reader as a kid. Particularly, he read more than comic books. He was reading a lot of history, and his excellent grasp of history and culture and reading hundreds of books.
So did Obama.
Yeah, gave
Obama
him
was really good.
an excellent undergirding to fill the office of presidency. So, okay. We're going to pick up where we left off. Truman had just taken over the presidency upon the death of FDR. FDR being in office only 82 days when Truman had to step in. And almost immediately, Harry was confronted with big decisions, not little decisions like, do we build a McDonald's at the corner of 5th and Vine, but big ones like, do we drop a bomb? Do we go to war with China? Those kind of issues that really make you lose sleep at night. Of course, maybe the toughest decision perhaps that any politician ever had to make, or at least one of the top ones, was the decision whether to drop the atomic bomb. And Truman, it haunted him all of his life, the decision. Although for those that saw the movie Oppenheimer, remember where he chases Oppenheimer out of the office and basically said, "Get that sissy out of here," realizing he had to make a tough call. He in his memoirs, he mentions he had to decide, talk about, it's like asking you, do you want to get shot or stabbed? You know, they said, if you drop the bomb, you're going to definitely kill at least 100,000 people and maim future generations. If you don't drop the bomb, the war experience had said that Iwo Jima, for example, the number of US service lives lost taking that one island over a period of 10 days cost an incredible more than 10,000 lives. And we've got a member of this class that went into Okinawa in 1945. This was before the war was over, right, Jim? And Jim talked about the fear and the determination of the Japanese people to resist to the death an invasion. Most military analysts figure at least 2 million deaths would have resulted in an invasion of Japan. And of course, those casualties would have been spread not only through the military forces, but across the civilian population. So talk about a tough decision. Do I kill a couple 100,000 people with a bomb drop, a couple bomb drops, or do I do an invasion that's going to kill 2 million people or more? And also Stalin was going to put troops in and probably didn't want a piece of Japan for later years. That's one of those tough decisions, and he made it decisively. The buck did stop here, and to his final day, he said, sleeping at night, he woke up thinking about that decision.
But he never regretted it.
Yeah, he thought he had made the right one. It was just one of those, do you want to get shot or stabbed decisions? Or a mother with two twins, and they said, we've got to abort one of the twins to save the other. You know, that horrible decision. So, okay, next one. Recognition of Israel. Truman was the first, we were the first major nation to recognize Israel officially. Truman went against a lot of his advisors. Marshall and several others thought it was a bad thing to do. They thought we were planting the seeds of a multi-generation, multi-centural struggle. And of course, that's true. And he's absolutely true. But he did make that decision. There's a picture of him walking with his old friend, Aldi Jacobson, who was a key figure in convincing Truman that he should step in and recognize Israel. Again, Marshall told him that if the state of Israel declared, war would break out in the Middle East. And it happened the very next day after the recognition. So,
And Ron, that was right after Israel first became a state.
yes.
It was recognized by the UN as a state, and they all come back there.
Right. And so obviously we're still dealing with this issue. We could certainly have 10 classes on it. Okay, next one. The Marshall Plan. Europe was in a god-awful state at the end of World War II. Many of its nations have been ravaged. I think Poland in particular lost something like 25, 30% of its civilian population. They had been ravaged not only by the German invaders, but then the Russians came in from the other side and let them have it with, and both of those nations, both Germany and Russia, committed serious atrocities against genocide, massive genocide against the Polish people. So, wow. But George Marshall, certainly a hero, an unsung hero of American history, proposed the plan to try to rescue some of the broken nations of Europe to save Germany from total Soviet occupation. They, of course, split Germany into 4 zones, Russia getting one of the zones, including the Russian zone, which enveloped Berlin.
Yeah.
And of course, how many know the story of the Berlin airlift, where Russia just said, we're not going to let any overland supplies come into Berlin. We're just going to starve those other 3 districts out and take all of Berlin that's in our district anyway. And they advanced the Berlin airlift, flying aircraft out. They were taking off every couple minutes, loaded with coal, food, medical supplies, everything needed to sustain the city of Berlin for no less than, it went on for at least 6 or 7 months before Russia finally broke down and let them use overland resupply to Berlin. So that was a tough call. There's a lady now who's written many a book, Anne Applebaum, and you'll find her on the internet. And she writes a lot of excellent articles for the Atlantic, and she's written many books. But one of her best books is Iron Curtain, The Crushing of Eastern Europe, 1944 to 1956. When I was a kid, my mom hired a lady to iron in 1958. And I remember I was about a 7 or 8-year-old boy. And this lady had come from Budapest. And she had been run out of her family, out of Eastern Europe, the city of Budapest, by the Russian suppression of the uprising in, is that 56? Yeah. But there were 10,000 or more Eastern Europeans killed in that Russian crushing of the rebellion there in the country. So that's a book worth thinking about before you trust Putin. The Soviet Union, so the Marshall Plan, it was put under Marshall's name because he had good bipartisan support. So everybody recognized Marshall had done a tremendous job managing World War II, logistics, battle plan and stuff.
And it was really rebuilding the infrastructure, the buildings that had been bombed out. Is that right?
That and even providing food.
Okay.
There was real concern that Greece was going to fall and turn into a communist country in a matter of weeks unless they stepped in Greece and some of the other places. Germany, parts of Germany were just, there were, starvation was happening. Italy, other places. So the Marshall Plan was essential in saving the rest of Europe from Soviet domination. I had a friend in high school, his name was Maris Lasis, good buddy, and he later went to college with me for a year or 2, and he had some stories to tell about how his family had fled Latvia, one of the 3 Lithuanian countries, when they were overwhelmed. And I had another friend who had a Polish father. His Polish father had some real good words to say about the brutality of the Soviet Union, their aggressiveness. Okay, next one.
Rosalinda.
Go ahead.
Rosalinda grew up in Germany.
Yeah.
And go ahead, take the
Oh,
microphone.
this thing.
Yeah. I know.
Speak really loud.
Yeah.
Did you live through the Marshall Plan, and did you see
Well,
the rebuilding when you were there?
Remagen was an area where the.
Closer.
Just put it closer.
Spit on it. Spit on it.
Spit on it.
No, they, the allies too, they wanted to.
It's not working.
Maybe it doesn't work with you.
It's okay.
That's your chin.
Yeah, just put it, yeah. Rest it on your chin.
Put that,
We go, try that one.
Think that's,
try that
yeah,
one.
see, you have a
Try it.
nice one.
Okay.
Get close.
I like it.
Boom it.
Anyway, you know, the allies, they wanted to bomb also the cathedrals, Catholic cathedrals along the Rhine River. I mean, they're beautiful churches, you know. And the Catholic Church got involved, and they got them not to do it. You know, they had one half was half broken. And after that, though, they finally said, okay, we leave the churches alone. That was kind of interesting, you know, and you could go and see everything was wonderful right around the church, but then the cities were bombed out, you know, around them. It was kind of interesting. I always thought,
And did you see the rebuilding while you were there?
no, I think it took quite a while before they started rebuild things, you know. They had little chapels they built next to the, oh, I always use my hand.
It's okay.
They built close to the churches, you know, little chapels that they used for the longest time. And then later on in the 70s and 80s, they started to rebuild the, you know, the cathedrals.
What year did you come to America?
I can't remember.
You can't remember?
No, in 64.
64, okay.
Yeah, I've been here longer now than I was in Europe.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I pick up on that a little bit? They
Go ahead.
accused the Pope at that time of complicity with the Nazis, and his response was, I made certain concessions in order to save
Yeah,
the churches and the faith.
right.
He was
Sometimes you have to
justified.
compromise.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Of course, the Soviet Union hated the Marshall Plan and launched their own Molotov plan. Next one. All right. We mentioned this last week that Harry had the ability to work across the aisle. He called in Herbert Hoover to help administer the Marshall Plan and the humanitarian aid. Appointed Hoover to lead the Famine Emergency Committee. And Hoover stepped up and did a really good job using his skills and abilities. He was an engineer by trade, I believe, so we gotta put a, but better than that, he had a heart. Okay, next. All right, we're gonna, and then comes another major decision, civil rights. This is a meeting of the NAACP in 1947 at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And Truman showed up to talk and speak. There's the Howard University Black Ladies Choir. And then I see as well singing at that event. And in 1948 proposed that Congress should pass comprehensive civil rights legislation. He was the first one to really put the legislation on the table. He issued a couple executive orders, including Executive Order 9981, which prohibited discrimination in agencies of the federal government and desegregated the armed services. We're going to listen to a 2-minute segment, actual segment of Harry speaking on the issue of desegregating the military. Let me quickly bring it up, or at least hopefully quickly bring it up. But that was a bold step in that time. You got to remember in 1948, in the election, there was a South Carolinian who ran under the segregationist party. Anybody know who that was?
Strom Thurmond.
Strom Thurmond.
Remember that name?
So let's see if we've got.
I should like to talk to you
Here we go.
briefly, conflict and human freedom. It is my deep conviction that we have reached a turning point in the long history of our country's efforts to guarantee freedom and equality to all our citizens. Recent events in the United States and abroad have made us realize that it is more important today than ever before to ensure that all Americans enjoy these rights. When I say all Americans, I mean all Americans. we must keep moving forward with new concepts of civil rights to safeguard our heritage. The extension of civil rights today means not protection of the people against the government, but protection of the people by the government. We must make the federal government a friendly, vigilant defender of the rights and equalities of all Americans. And again, I mean all Americans. As Americans, we believe that every man should be free to live his life as he wishes. He should be limited only by his responsibility to his fellow countrymen. If this freedom is to be more than a dream, each man must be guaranteed equality of opportunity. The only limit to an American's achievement should be his ability, his industry, and his character. These rewards for his efforts should be determined only by those truly relevant qualities. Our immediate task is to remove the last remnants of the barriers which stand between millions of our citizens and their birthright. There is no justifiable reason for discrimination because of ancestry or religion or race or color. We must not tolerate such limitations on the freedom of any of our people and on their enjoyment of basic rights which every citizen is in a truly democratic society must possess.
Okay. Not bad for 1948, especially coming out of Jackson County, which had some real struggles.
Yeah,
He was really ahead of his time.
he was ahead of his time by 20 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
Jim, go ahead. Jim had a comment.
Well, I was remembering Martin Luther King's speech, free at last, free at
Yes.
last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
That was about 20 years after Harry Truman. Yeah, Ann, go ahead.
I just remember in one of his biographies that he really valued Bess, wasn't that his wife's name?
Yes.
He really counseled with her a lot on his decision making. So we can't forget the women.
Right. Okay. Okay, next slide. We've got the civil rights one. And we jump up to, there it made the front page of the paper. President Truman wipes out segregation in the military. And then the next slide. Then we went into the 1948 election. And Truman was supposed to get whipped by Dewey.
Yeah, the Chicago paper really.
Yeah, and there's a little, bobblehead where he held up the early printed paper declaring he had lost when he had won. This is considered one of the biggest election upsets of all time. Pulled it out in the last 6 weeks. All the reputable polling says he was going to lose, but he went on a whistle blowing train tour through a lot of the Midwest, particularly hitting the farm areas and talked to the farmers, and he turned it around. So there he won the Electoral College 303 to 189. And the blue are the states that he won. Interesting division there. Okay.
Well, and the gray for Strom Thurmond.
Yeah, Strom Thurmond. Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Strom Thurmond, by the way, impregnated at age 19 a black girl that was a maid in his house in South Carolina, and paid her child support for the most of his life. But it was such a strange anomaly. Here's a guy that's impregnated a young black girl and is a super segregationist.
He was not the only one who did that.
Oh, yeah. All right. Here's a good cartoon that Steve found in on the internet from the Saturday Evening Post. And there's a couple disagreeing over politics.
What about the poor baby?
Okay, next one. All right. Billy Graham was just getting cranked up in the 50s, late 40s. And Billy Graham showed up on the White House lawn with some of his associates in a lime green suit. He came in to talk to Harry for half an hour, and he went way over his time and he wouldn't shut up. And Truman had to kind of push him out of there, but he did not care for Billy Graham. He felt he was being pushy and using the White House lawn and his neon green suit to try to tell Truman what he was going to have to do. All right, next one. Okay. Harry was not immune from an assassination attempt. He had to move out of the White House for a good year and a half, where they did an extensive renovation of the White House, and he lived with his family across the street at the Blair House. There were a couple of Puerto Rican extremists, several of them, that decided they were going to assassinate him and planned to ambush him coming out of the Blair House front door. Had they been, I don't know, an hour later or something, they would have gotten him. But there was a gunfight. It killed the two nationalists, and it did also kill the security guard. So there were a lot of bullets flying. His timing been off just a little bit. Harry might have been successfully assassinated. There's one of the gunmen that was shot down in an assassination attempt. Okay, and he seriously wounded several others. So there were a lot of bullets flying. Okay, we mentioned the Berlin airlift. As an aviation enthusiast and a movie enthusiast, I think one of the coolest movies of all was Jimmy Stewart and June Allison starred in Strategic Air Command. And if you like classic movies, definitely watch that one. Okay, and then of course the book Dark Sun by Richard Rhodes talks about the acceleration of the nuclear weapons race, resulting in the B-36 supersized bomber. Next one. Okay, the Truman Doctrine. This is actually a picture Alice and I took in the Eisenhower Museum in Abilene, Kansas. And as I mentioned last week, Eisenhower and Truman were in lockstep agreement in terms of NATO and the Marshall Plan. And you'll see in both of those museums very positive things mentioned about both Truman and Eisenhower relative to their support of NATO and the Marshall Plan and helping allies that are our friends. And again, particularly the Marshall Plan, as I mentioned, was really essential in quickly preventing Greece and Turkey from falling into the communist Iron Curtain. Next slide. Okay, NATO, we've mentioned NATO. In addition to NATO, there were a couple other secondary pacts. They're again mentioned quite ably in the Eisenhower Museum. All right, the Rio Pact of 1947, the ANZUS Pact, and the CETO Pact. But NATO's the one that has lasted the longest. Next one. The Korean War. One of the most difficult days ever any president has had to be the night Harry Truman, when the U.S. forces helped South Korea repel the invasion, moved north into North Korea, stopped at the Yalu River, and then China threw in at least 500,000 and maybe a couple million foot soldiers. The night he heard that China had come into the war with hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops in Korea. What a night. If he slept a wink, I'd be surprised. When he heard that the Soviets were pushing the Chinese army into Korea. Truman reportedly responded, "By God, I'm going to let them have it." So he made an immediate decision. He was going to come to the aid of Korea. And of course, the Korean War went from 1950, didn't really come to a conclusion by just a minor, it's still, I don't think they signed an official treaty. It was just kind of a deadlock that finally ended in 1953. He did not ask Congress for a declaration of war, which of course did not have to do with the 60-day rule, but he immediately poured US forces into Korea. I go to see my Korean heritage dentist on Thursday, and just about all the wonderful Korean people I've met, particularly those who have emigrated here, think are grateful to the United States for keeping them from being totally overwhelmed and dominated by the Soviet bloc. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is an actual picture of a MASH unit in Korea in 1951, a mobile army surgical unit. Does that look like, that must have been, yeah. You know what TV show that makes you think of? It says there's 3 people being worked on in this picture. One person's receiving blood plasma, while Alan Alda and Margaret and Trapper John and the others are back there on the tables. But
looks just like the TV show.
yeah, they did a good job. Okay, next slide, 37. Move along here. Okay, some good movies. There's the movie Gregory Peck and the movie Pork Chop Hill. And there's, of course, we could do a whole course on the Korean War. Vicious war, but it did save Korea from communist domination. Next slide. Truman fired MacArthur. That was a very unpopular decision, but MacArthur wanted to drop A-bombs on China and openly go into a nuclear head-to-head conflict with China. And Truman said the civilian branch must have control over the military. We can't just let a Department of War idiot take over our government. The civilian branch must have the control. So he went over, he fired MacArthur, and that's another lesson in itself. Next slide. We're now at, okay, so the 52 election. By this time, Truman had some of the lowest presidential ratings ever. Steve had asked me last week what I thought the factors were. Well, there had been 20 years of a Democrat as head. FDR, the FDR follow-on, Truman, and people were just maybe tired of the Democratic Party controlling and calling the shots for 2 decades. So that was one factor, fatigue. 2, Truman was not charismatic, although I think you'll acknowledge, if you listen to him, the guy, he was smart, he had sense, but he never would have won a beauty contest or been the most popular show host of America's Got Talent. But he did have intelligence, even if he didn't have personal charisma. At any rate, he actually decided before the election, well before the election, he looked at the polls and said, it's time for me to bow out. And the other factor was people were getting tired of the Korean War. The Korean War took at least 35,000 Americans killed. It killed tens of hundreds of thousands of Koreans, both North and South, and Chinese. The people were getting tired of war. They had World War II, and now Korea came right behind it and added another huge body count. Eisenhower, of course, campaigned that he was going to go to Korea and stop the war, which he did, but the fact was the war was finally exhausting both sides, such that I think whoever would have been in office that time, could have successfully brought it to at least stalemate conclusion. So that was a good election. And of course, Ike won that election decisively against Illinois Senator Adlai Stevenson. There's an interesting quote from Adlai Stevenson. Somebody told Adlai Stevenson, Adlai, all the really educated and smart people are going to vote for you. And he said, but that won't be enough.
Kind of like today.
Okay. All right. So an armistice suspend that. But Truman was not a hard loser. Next slide. There's a picture of Truman and Eisenhower sitting in the back of a car for the Inauguration Day parade. Notice they're not in an armored vehicle, but they respected each other. They had worked together, of course, on NATO and the Marshall Plan. So they didn't hate each other. They got along. And Truman was able to pass the torch to Eisenhower there in the 52 election. Next slide. Move quickly, I'm talking too much. Okay, so as he left the presidency, I went back to Missouri, lived a pretty quiet life. And the Medicare bill finally came back into the legislature and was signed by Lyndon Johnson in 1965. So this is after all those years after 1948, where Medicare came back into view, and it passed. And Johnson flew out to Independence, Missouri, and gave Harry and his wife the first 2 Medicare cards. And all right, and of course Truman built there in Independence with his funds, or the funds raised, a tremendous museum that's well worth going into. Here's Truman playing his piano. Remember last week we talked about how he'd gotten up at every morning at 5 when he was a young lad at 5, 6, 7 years old to practice his piano. So quite a guy. There's the next one, slide 42. There's the famous scene where Lauren Bacall got on top of the piano. And here's that great quote. We'll repeat it from last week. He said, my choice early in life was either to be a piano player in a whorehouse or a politician. And to tell the truth, there's hardly any difference. I, for one, believe the piano player job to be much more honorable than current politicians. Leave it to Harry. All right. Okay, so he left. He passed away December 26, 1972, there in Independence, Missouri. And he went from a guy that had some of the lowest ratings ever of a president leaving office, but people went back and said, you know, this guy did a good job. Next slide.
You could visit his house.
Yeah, there's Harry and Bess. Slide 44, next one. Let's see if that comes up. Here we go. There's the Truman Museum, and again, he was given one of the first 2 Medicare cards by Johnson. And then we'll close on 45 slide. Let's see if we can get that into focus. This is a statue of Truman. And what's he saying there? Let's see, this one says, Mrs. Truman and I hope and believe we have contributed to the welfare of this nation and to the peace of this world. Let's see if we can read this one over here. We must work to bind up the wounds of the suffering world, to build an abiding peace, a peace rooted in justice and in law. And let's go all the way back to the second slide of this presentation. I wanted to show you the slide number 2. This is how this is just one person, one university system ranking of the presidents. Ranking the presidents by consulting a lot of historians. You may vehemently agree or disagree with this ranking, but there is Harry at number 6. Okay,
And Obama at number 7.
And Obama at number 7.
Biden is higher in here. Look at Biden.
Where is he?
He's
A few
true.
down.
And
He's at
14.
He's at 14.
14, yeah. Let's see who's down, go way down to the bottom. You may vehemently disagree or agree with this, but, you know, the more I've read on Truman, particularly as I've read his memoirs, parts of them, I haven't completed them yet, but I'm impressed with the guy. The guy had a heart, he had good reason, and if there's anybody who could sit at my supper table and chat with, I'd love to have Harry Truman.
Yeah.
So let's,
Ron, did
let's
he
get some
talk
comments.
about religion, his own personal faith at all? And did he court the evangelical vote like today?
Okay, the answer is, his parents, of course, moved into independence when he was about age 6 from Lamar, Missouri, to deliver specifically to get him enrolled in a Presbyterian Sunday school. And he did have training, but they said the best thing that gave him a wider, shall we say, spiritual view was in World War II. We mentioned this, World War I, where his Missouri unit, artillery unit, had people of Jewish, Catholic, Irish, a whole bunch of different religious and ethnic backgrounds. And it said he really, really appreciated getting to make friendships across the tribal barriers, the religious barriers. He made several Jewish friends. And they said that really put the real foundation in his spiritual view. No, he did not court particularly religious groups while he was in the White House. And in fact, he was irritated by
Billy Graham.
Billy Graham with this neon green suit wanting to play that card.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, but pass the microphone back to Gail, please. Thank you.
Was there any indication that there was ever given thought to dropping the atomic bomb somewhere else first?
Yeah, they considered, some said, let's drop it in Tokyo Bay, way out far offshore to demonstrate the potential of it. And that's the one I've heard of most.
And why was that option
Rejected?
rejected?
It finally came down to, they thought the lives equation said that would end the war. And maybe, you know, if we looked at the fierceness and the determination of the Japanese people,
Yeah.
which we have high respect, they would not have succumbed to an invasion lightly, tread lightly. No way. So that invasion would have been vicious. It would have brought Russia. Stalin was ready to send troops in, and he would have taken, I think, more of the, maybe even taken a Japanese island or two, beyond which he already did. He did get a couple small islands in northern Japan.
Ron?
So yeah, so this will be argued for the end of time. Was that the right call or not?
Oh, I just wanted to share something built on Gail's good question. I've wondered the same thing, Gail. Very interestingly, my father, Wayne Van Arsdale, was based as a bomber pilot in the Okinawa area at the end of the war. He'd been flying raids and whatnot in the areas of Borneo, Philippines, and elsewhere, and then found himself in the Okinawa area and a little bit closer to Japan as the war came to an end. He and others at that time, as the war officially was being announced as being over, heard news about giant bombs. Well, right there, they had no idea what the everyday service person did not know what an atomic bomb was. They just heard that there were huge bombs that had been dropped a few days before on Japan and that it was devastating. My father legally commandeered a B-24 bomber. He got his crew together, the crew that had helped him with his previous raids, commandeered the bomber, and flew about 400 miles to Nagasaki because he heard that was one of the 2 sites where this giant bomb, whatever it was called, had been dropped. My father, he told me this years later, it still tormented him. He flew in, he said, at 300 feet elevation. And as he was approaching Nagasaki, and I was there just 2 years ago, so I know it's near the end of the island, it's somewhat hilly and mountainous there. As he flew toward Nagasaki and passed over some rice fields, again, he was only 300 feet in elevation. He saw Japanese farmers shaking their fists at him like this because, of course, his plane had the American insignia on it. So that was very gripping. And then, no surprise, he flew right over Nagasaki. He said this is the most terrible thing he ever saw. He could never forget the desolation of that area. Gray, littered, rubble, no life, about 2 buildings standing.
Wow. Yeah.
We also have to remember Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not the worst city bombings that happened in Japan. The bombing of Tokyo in the spring of 45 took more lives. Firebombing took more lives. They spread firebombs in a night attack at low altitude. There were a lot of wooden structures in the Tokyo area, and that took more lives than the atomic attack. Reaching out to today, can you break the will of the Iranian people by bombing them to death? By just continuing bombing? That's open for debate, and that's another lesson in itself.
I want to give our Zoomers a chance too, if they have anything, just jump on in if you have a comment or a question. Our Zoomers, that's okay. If you do, go right ahead. We're going to go to Don in the back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that we traveled to Athens, Greece. I think it was in the late 90s. Anyway, we're walking down a major crossroads in Athens. There's this statue of Harry Truman.
Oh.
And I couldn't believe it. Have you seen any president's statue in a foreign country?
Yeah.
And it was a very complimentary thank you to Harry for helping them recreate. You talked about Greece there a little bit. And so.
Thank you for the rebuilding, the
Yes.
Marshall Plan.
Yeah. The people were very complimentary and held him in great esteem.
Okay.
Didn't know that. Yeah.
So a lot of these things carry on to today's world. We can see history repeating itself in some respects.
What do you think about the joke that was made by Trump the other day concerning the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
Sick.
Yeah, if anybody didn't hear that, the Japanese Prime Minister was visiting the White House, and Trump said something about Japanese should know about surprises because of World War II. So he made kind of a joke about how the Japanese know about the issue of surprise, and yeah, it didn't go over very well.
You think?
Yeah.
Except for the maggots.
Maybe. Very good.
So I'll just share, I took an 11-day hike on the southwest coast of England.
Okay.
A few years ago, and for various reasons, I was hiking by myself. Every single day, I met people who knew I was from the US, because, you know, I have an accent.
Got it.
And they'd want to know where, and I'd say Colorado. And every single day, there was one or more people that thanked me because it was the soldiers from Fort Carson that were assigned to help protect the southwest coast of England during World War II, when England thought that they were going to be invaded by the Germans.
Okay.
Every single day for 11 days.
Yes. If you study the Battle of England, which was the air war, had Germany continued for another 3 or 4 days to keep its attacks focused on the English airfields, that might have wiped out the Royal Air Force. They switched over to bombing people and enabled the Air Force to stagger through and keep going. I'll switch to today. They estimated that Iran had maybe 3,000 ballistic missiles before the conflict started. That was the intelligence estimate. Now they're seeing that after nearly 14 days of war, the missile waves are still coming in heavy numbers. They think they badly underestimated the numbers. They think they've got at least 4,500, and they believe that many of them are in well hidden and deep entrenched tunnels and caves. We're trying to get them and root them out is just about impossible. So that's the miscalculation made on the resourcefulness of an enemy.
I just say I think a challenge is that they laid off a lot of the people in the Department of Defense who specifically focused on what's going on in other countries.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. We'll do the research.
Oh, okay. That, and we're running out of the Israeli and the Allies are running out of missiles to fire at these.
Yeah.
Yeah. The numbers are, in fact, I hope I'm wrong, but the sources I've read saying Tel Aviv and the Israeli countryside is now getting really, really devastated. They're not putting that out, not letting pictures and stuff go out, are really getting hammered. The percentage of missiles getting through and drones getting through, even at the beginning, was maybe 5%, which is perhaps a tolerable number. But now that the Iranians have figured out how to use better swarming techniques, simultaneous attacks, and the missiles running low, maybe 15% are getting through. And if those missiles run out, so we're in a heap of hurt.
Just a few minutes left, Larry, and then, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Alan. Yeah, Alan, right. And then Steve-O. Go
I
ahead.
saw a picture of the Shahad, or however you say it, drone. It's bigger than a big truck.
Really?
You think of a drone as being small, but there was a picture of one beside a car that dwarfed the car.
Huh.
They're big.
Yeah. Alan, use the microphone, please.
Speaking of underestimating, they've also underestimated the long-range missile capability of Iran. They recently shot a long-range missile in the middle of the Indian Ocean. To the U.S. base.
Diego Garcia base.
Exactly. It was a different island.
Thousands of miles.
2,500 miles.
Interesting. Alan, microphone back to Steve-O, please.
I'm gonna challenge you, Ron. It's not us that's gonna have the problems. It's the other countries that are on there, like UAE and others that, we stirred up that hornet's nest or bee's nest now, and they don't have to go very far in order for them to inflict so much damage with it. And the long range, obviously, with the Strait of Hormuz, the long range impact is just going to be devastating.
Yeah, it's kind of we won. Goodbye. Good luck. And the people who are going to get hit hardest, we as the United States have, oil, gas, wealth. We'll get through better than a lot. But the countries, small African countries that desperately need oil at affordable prices, they're the ones that are going to get the worst of it.
India.
I was just going to say, I had to take Spanish lessons from a lady in Peru. The diesel they can't get, and they have to wait 2 or 3 hours for gas right now for cars.
Wow. In what country again?
That's in Peru.
Peru. Okay.
Affecting so many countries around the world. Such a dangerous time. We're out of time here too, but we'll do last couple comments? Jane and then Patty.
I just wanted to mention and ask Ron if he can give us a little information about his chat with the Friday morning
Morals of comic books.
on the 27th.
Oh, yeah, I'll put in a plug.
Yeah.
My intellect and my science and my morals have been affected by some great comic books I read. Green Lantern, Flash, Superman, Justice League of America. And I'm going to talk on how that affected me. So I'm a big proponent that I've always been interested in what puts moral codes into people. How do you really build a moral foundation? And I think the answer, I think for me, there's many sources. Sometimes though, they're surprising. It's often kids in your neighborhood, your peers. There was a great Catholic family across the street, and they had a very positive influence on me. But also some good comic books from the early '60s, and I'll give examples of those.
9:30 on Friday.
9:30 on Friday.
Coffee chat.
Yes.
And TV shows.
Where, when?
Here.
9:30 this Friday in the library here at church. Yeah, it'll be a good presentation.
Ron, I was just gonna say, since it influenced you so much, the comics that they had then, I don't know about the comics today. But is there any chance it might influence people with their moral character?
Yeah, both good and bad. But I think DC Comics, particularly in the late '50s and early '60s, had a real high code and undergirding message of inner morality. Yeah, which we'll talk about
Superman
later.
TV show of the '60s. Remember him? Yeah.
Truth,
Justice, and the American way. Patty has the last comment.
Well, I'm just wondering about Saturday and no Kings, and with all of this anxiety that I'm feeling, I'm wondering about action and what St. Andrews is doing. You're hosting something here.
No Kings protest
Parking
this
lot?
Saturday.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
and are you guys, is this class or the church involved in that beyond hosting the parking lot?
It's really, of course, it's not the role of the church to officially support or work any political issue. But I can say there's a lot of people in this class that on the road.
I'm gonna be there,
Yeah,
at the Capitol.
I'll be at the corner near Arapahoe High School with my sign.
Okay. Thank
And
you,
I'm
Ron.
wearing my IM.
Thank you. Bye, Dad.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good discussion. See you next week.
Oh, boy.